Great. Good afternoon again, everyone. Thank you all for your attendance today. We can go ahead and get started with the meeting. Let's start off with some attendance. Let's go around the room, introduce ourselves. This is the first time we've seen each other in a while. So let's go around the room, introduce ourselves, our name and our affiliation. I'll start over here to my right, please.
Steve Buse, City of Richmond.
Hi, I'm Ashley Austin. I'm a senior transportation planner with Henrico County.
Mitch Huber, statewide transit planner, DRPT.
Philip Kemp, Hanover County.
JJ Van Willis, Chesterfield County.
John O'Keefe, Ride Finders.
Ian Manuka County.
Guy Roach, GRTC.
Bannon Lucker, Town of Ashland.
Chet Parsons, Central Virginia Transportation Authority.
Awesome. Dorian Allen, project manager for the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan.
I'm Miles Bushing, also here at Planner VA.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead to the next item on our agenda, the March 4th meeting summary.
I think we have a couple people online as
Oh,
well.
sure, yeah.
Let's see here online. If you can state your name, we have see here, Zach. We'll go first with Zach, please.
Sid, are we unmuted?
Todd. All right, we'll skip Zach. Let's see, who else do we have? You're online. Could you state your name, please? Name and affiliation.
Trip Pollard, Southern Environmental Law Center.
Thank you. Anybody else online?
Hi, this is Todd Schott with VDOT.
Thank you.
Yep.
And we have one last one.
Just you and me.
No, it's just Zach. All right, that's fine. Your name will be recorded accordingly. So let's move on. Public comment period. Do we have any comments from the public at all? Hearing none, we will move right along to the LRTP process update. I'm sure you all are very familiar with this graphic here. This is our LRTP process flow. We first start with the baseline development of our 2050 data. This includes population, job growth, age distribution. Then we move on to our scenario analysis, where we make assumptions about the distribution of that population in job growth. Once we get a better understanding of that through our process, through our scenario planning process, we then begin the process of our strategic direction. Basically, what we do is we understand where we're trying to go and what are the goals and objectives that we need to establish to get to that end. Once we establish the goals and objectives, we then establish a transportation needs assessment. This is where we look to various transportation plans, comprehensive plans throughout the region to understand what is the transportation needs going forward over the next 25 years. From that, we come up with a list of solutions in our universe of projects. From that universe, we prioritize the projects based on their effectiveness in addressing regional goals and objectives. We evaluate the plan, and then we go forward with plan adoption. That is slated for September of this year. So we've completed the strategic direction through agreements on vision, goals, and objectives and performance measures. We've identified the regional transportation issues and developed the region's needs assessment. We've developed the regional project inclusion guidelines, which leads to the creation of the universe of projects. That was accepted by the advisory work group on December 3rd. We are now in the project prioritization implementation process, which is parallel to the constraint plan development, which would be the topic of conversation for our meeting today. So moving right along, we'll get into our constraint plan development, the investment scenario performance scoring. So this is our opportunity to test how well the scenarios meet regional goals and objectives. Each scenario that we've discussed so far is graded on how well they meet the performance targets that we focus on. The questions such as, does this package reduce crashes and improve travel for all users? Does it better connect people to jobs, healthcare, and education? Does it support predictability in the movement of people and goods? And does it help in addressing emergency response? In doing so, we use the region's travel demand model and scenario scoring so that we know how a package performs before we apply funding to it. We want to be able to identify which package moves the needle most effectively towards our 2050 targets. The packages in the broader context focuses on overall regional project set benefit rather than individual project benefit. So we look at overarching questions such as, do we want to focus more on transit or highway projects? Or do we want to focus more on a cost benefit analysis or purely benefit analysis? And we'll get into those scenarios going forward in the meeting. So we do this by setting the 2031 travel demand model network as our baseline. This is the current network plus existing and committed projects over the next 6 years. So projects that are already funded or have committed funding within the 6-year improvement program or the TIP. This is basically our do nothing baseline. So we code the projects into the travel demand model and stress test how these projects perform against the current transportation network. Then what we do is we do a reasonableness assessment. And what this does is allows us to look at the data outputs for each objective and ask does this make sense for the region. Oftentimes discrepancies or inconsistencies in the data may result in intricacies such as project phasing disorder, issues with trip distribution and traffic assignments and other methodological issues. So then as we do that, we're able to look at how much progress is being made with each scenario through the model. So what we want to do here is we kind of pivot and we want to look at our objective baseline calculations. So basically what we have is our regional goals set here to the left of safety, sustainability, reliability, and resiliency. We have our objectives through each goal. And then we have how well does each scenario address each one of these objectives within the goal areas. So we can go down one by one to look at each one of the scenarios and how they work and how they perform. So in our safety goal, our objective A1 is by 2050, the number of people killed or seriously injured on all roadways will be reduced by 100%. As we look at each one of the scenarios, we can see that it's a pretty even split with traditional usage and cost-effective scenarios performing the best when it comes to reducing individual crashes, serious and seriously injured crashes. Going down the list, by 2050, the rate, so per 1 million vehicle miles traveled of people killed or seriously injured on all roadways will be reduced by 100%.
Is it printed out?
Is there a printout of the story?
We have copies of this. It's just really hard to.
Because I think the screen's really small.
Okay.
I'll go grab some for everyone.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Just give us 1 second. We'll get some printouts for you.
What's the percentage that's under each scenario? What's that percent?
So under each scenario, this is how well each scenario performs in that specific objective. So if we say it's 100%, well, we'll say traditional usage, we'll get 15% of that 100%.
Okay. So all four add up to 100.
Well, no, so the idea was to measure it against the objective. So if our objective was to reduce all the fatalities and we're able to calculate how much we're reducing of fatalities, we're getting 15% of the way to the goal. And the idea is that these are a subset of the overall projects we're building as a region, but we can compare across scenarios how much each one advances toward that objective. And that's for almost all of them. There's a handful where we don't have, we can't get to that full extrapolation. Dorian's gonna go over those in a second. I think if you want to pull it back up and
Sure.
while Phil's in the printouts. It's been a while since we've had an in-person meeting for these.
Thank you.
I'm not sure.
Oh.
It's pretty tiny.
Is that it?
Is it
Yeah.
small?
Yeah, it's still pretty small.
Oh.
Have you shared the spreadsheet with us previously?
No, so we just got the safety data on this, yesterday, so this is hot off the presses actually.
It is actually hot. For real.
It'd be helpful if we didn't see it on our screens.
Yes.
Sorry. Take it away. Good job.
Yeah, I can do that too.
Yeah, share it, I guess.
I'm still with
You
the-
share. I think that everyone needs to be able to read it. It's too small.
Exciting test.
This is your.
That's what you're trying to make sure your glasses are working.
That's really challenging me today.
So I just shared it in the meeting chat. You all should be able to pull it up on your laptops if possible. And please let me know if you have any issues with the link as well.
Dorian, I didn't register for the Teams meeting, so I can't get to the chat. Is there a way to just email it to the group?
Sure.
It's in the agenda too.
Is it, it's in the agenda? Okay.
You have to
I do have the
submit
agenda.
in advance. Soon you can just get on it.
Phil, I just emailed it to you if you.
Okay, perfect.
Going forward, for objective A2, by 2050, the rate per 1 million vehicle miles traveled of people killed or seriously injured on all roadways will be reduced by 100%. If we go to the objectives, we see that transformative has the most effect on that reduction, followed by cost effective and traditional usage, with motion being last.
And I think the one thing to caveat on all of this is this was measured with EPDO, so it's not a perfect match to fatality. Like it's not fully engineered. It's basically measuring overall how much are we proving fatality and safety with these improvements that are in each of the scenarios relative to their baseline. It's not a perfect, there's 10 fatalities that will be reduced. So that's just the one caveat on all the safety measures, because that's what we were able to measure with the level of detail that we had on all these projects.
I heard you, Miles.
We're all working out the kinks here. So for
Have some meetings.
objective A3, by 2050, the number of people killed or seriously injured while walking and biking on all roadways will be reduced by 100% compared to 2022. We have bit of an even split here with the cost effective being the most effective in addressing this objective, followed by transformative. Traditional usage and mode shift have equal impact at 10%. Moving on to our sustainability goal, B1. By 2050, the percentage of volume of freight moved via intermodal transportation, rail through the port, will be increased by 50%. As you can see, this is dealing with rail money that's coming from the Federal Rail Administration. That money does not come through the NPO. So any rail project that we do have within our universe of projects will be put within our vision list. Moving forward to B2, by 2050, the average job and weighted destination per capita accessible within 30 minutes by all modes will increase by 15%. Within each scenario, we have it broken down by mode. And as we go across each scenario, we can see that we have an even split here as well.
Driving and transit combined, is that why it's the same number?
Yes, so that's for all modes, yes. For B3, by 2050, the percentage of residents and jobs within 1/2 mile radius of public transit lines will increase by 10%. Predictably, the transformative scenario will have the highest impact on this with 36%. The rest of the scenarios will have an even split between 21% and 23%. B4, by 2050, the average daily vehicle miles traveled and the average number of vehicle miles traveled per person per year is reduced by 10%. And here we have more of an even split between the traditional usage, mode shift, and cost effective, with transformative having a 0.36% impact on that specific objective. And finally, out of sustainability, by 2050, transportation-related emissions per capita are reduced by 75%. And here we have more of an even split as well, with the mode shift having the most impact with reducing emissions per year. On to our reliability measure. By 2050, peak hour traffic delay are reduced by 10%. So here we have pretty much an even split amongst our scenarios. C2, by 2050, the percentage of single occupancy vehicle trips is reduced by 10%. Again, we do have somewhat of an even split between our scenarios. By 2050, the average annual daily transit ridership is increased by 75%. And here we see the more of an impact on the cost-effective scenario, as well as the transformative scenario. C4, by 2050, the miles of dedicated infrastructure for biking and walking will increase by 25%. And we have an even split between our traditional usage, mode shift, and cost effective, with transformative having a much less impact at 16%. The next two measures deals with bridge and culvert and then pavement conditions. These are all coming from money that is taken off the top of our 2050 projected revenue. So that cost will be the same. And that impact would be the same across all scenarios. And now on to our resiliency goal for D1. By 2050, we have a 10% of at-risk transportation infrastructure on the LRTP network will be improved to withstand extreme weather events and natural disasters. Our traditional usage and mode shift have pretty much an even split, less of an impact for our cost effective, and the least impact will come from our transformative scenario. D2, by 2050, the redundant capacity of the LRTP network in the PM peak period will be increased by 5%. Because we don't have a baseline for this redundant capacity, we could not come up with a percentage, but we will have even split between for driving and transit, but we will have an even split amongst our scenarios for active transportation at 6.7% for our first three scenarios, and then 4.9% for our transformative scenario. And then finally, D3, by 2050, the overall transportation network connectivity is increased by 2%. We have an even split amongst our scenarios here. So this pretty much serves as a third piece of information that we have in terms of selecting a scenario. And what this does again is it allows us to look at how these scenarios are performing against a baseline going forward, compared from 2031 to 2050. Do we have any questions about that? I know that was a lot of information, so I want to open up the floor for any questions or concerns.
Is it significant to show when it's like 0.2%? Or do you just say, like, I don't know what's, well, if you're comparing like 0.2% to 0.24%?
Yeah. I don't think those are significant differences. I think that the goal was to try and get a baseline of like, there are some clear measures where one scenario outperforms the others. So where they're comparable, I don't think it's a huge thing, but like where you have one at 60% and the other one at 20 or something like that. That's what we were really trying to highlight with this. These same performance measures are the ones that, it's the goals, the objectives, which is what this is, and then that feeds into the performance measures for project selection. And these are the same ones that we'll assess the final package on as well, in addition to sort of the standard Title VI analysis and the other pieces that we need to complete. So this is kind of the first test run. And this is all against just our baseline future too, is the other context for this. This is just against the sort of what we think is the most likely future we have.
Any other questions, concerns?
I have a
Yes.
question. Could you just kind of recap the different scenarios? So it's been a while since I think we've talked about this.
We'll recap in the next.
You're gonna do that next?
Yes.
Okay. Because I really am interested in understanding what your transit assumptions are
Sure,
in these things, because it's important to understand how we're getting there.
sure. So then we'll get into the scenario selection process. So this is just a basic overview of how we get to this point. So what is fiscal constraint? It is demonstrating that the proposed investments are achievable with the money that's coming into the region over the next 25 years. The main components of the financial plan are the expected revenue projections, the maintenance of the existing system, and then the proposed system improvements, both on a local level and a regional level. And this is a collaborative effort between Plan RBA, VDOT, DRPT, and GRTC. So the proposed budget for 2050 is $3.1 billion. The vast majority is coming from VDOT, that is encompassing highway funds at $26.7 billion, and then transit funds from DRPT and GRTC that equal up to $4.8 billion. We have various time bands once we start prioritizing these projects. First being the no regrets. This is the low cost or immediate interventions currently unfunded, but possibly within the budget. This is between 2026 and 2031. We have our building blocks, which is the midterm prerequisite for party projects. So this is 2032 to 2037, and then our priority projects. These are the long-term projects that require additional planning and scoping, and this is from 2038 to 2050. Finally, we have our vision projects. These are our desirable projects, but not financially feasible or outside our realm. Previously mentioned the rail money that is coming from FRA that is not funneled through the NPO. So those type of projects will be put into our vision project list. So as we get into the scenarios, what we want to do is take a step back from individual project assessment and kind of look at what do we want to get from a specific project set. Do we want to focus on modal emphasis, where we are having a hard cap on our highway and multimodal projects, or do we want to focus just purely on a cost benefit analysis formulation of our constraint plan? So we have a scenario A, which is our traditional usage. This reflects recent historical funding patterns within our 6-year program. The split being 70% for highways and then 30% for multimodal projects. We have our scenario B, which basically takes our traditional usage and it increases our multimodal funding by 50%. So we have a split here of 55% highway and 45% multimodal projects. As we go down and actually put in the cost for these projects, this scenario closely tracks to a 60-40 split due to the high indivisible cost of major transit projects. We have our scenario C, which is the transformative benefit scenario. Basically what this is, we take the benefit score and we look at projects that have the highest regional benefit for our area. This results in fewer projects overall, but larger in scale and regional impact. And then we have our cost benefit scenario, which prioritizes the best bang for our buck. So the outcomes being a larger number of smaller, efficient projects mixed with selected high value, larger ones as well. Should go into the.
I guess, Amy, did that get to the questions you had of like how the 4 scenarios were developed?
Yeah, I mean, that's helpful. But I guess I still need to understand how you think we're gonna get to the mode split for the multimodal. Are you assuming that there's gonna be that level of funding available to?
Yeah, so each of these was procedurally developed. So basically we took the total pot and then we either were operating with the whole pot as useful or as subsets carved out. So in the first 2 scenarios, we basically said there's 30% of the pot, it's reserved for non-highway projects. And we allocated those funds first. And then on the mode shift, we basically set aside 45%, did the same process. And then whatever was left over, that's what went to the highway side. And then for the other 2 processes, the efficiency and the transformative, we took the entire budget and said, let's not look at mode, let's just look at the most cost effective based on the benefit cost score or the biggest benefit. So which of these projects is going to have the most individual impact, and then worked our way down the list and just funded them in order. It did skip. So if you have any questions on like why one project might have been funded above another, we did allow it to skip to try and maximize the use of the dollars. And so we're at essentially 100% capacity usage across all the scenarios. But that's the intent, is just this is a programmatic approach to allocating it. Our intent was never to use any of these as the final. That's why we're here today, is to figure out what exactly we land on, but give us a starting point of different ways of looking at how we could invest.
For the mode shift scenario, saying that 45% of the pot is reserved for multimodal projects and then the rest allocated to highway projects. Within the highway project portion of that scenario, what kind of methodology was used to select which highway projects would make it into that 55% pot, which ones would be excluded?
So it's the same process in all of the scenarios. So we either ranked it by the benefit score or by the benefit cost score, depending on which of the scenarios. So for mode shift and for the current split, both of them were a cost benefit score basis. So basically it was smart scale applied across billions of dollars. This essentially is the way we were looking at it. And so it basically, we tried to prioritize the projects that would have the most impact for their cost. So there are some projects that cost a lot that might have had an impact that may have scored lower, or projects that for whatever reason didn't score highly in this process, but might still need to be in there. So that's where we need to make some shifts as we talk through things today. But the idea was just to, let's start with getting as much as we can for the money based on these constraints and then see where we can go from there.
Okay.
And I did get some clarification on the safety scoring. If anyone wanted to know on that one, I was checking with Soren in the back, but it's basically because the target was reduction from 100 downward. So from 100, we want to go down to 0. Everything that was below 100 was showing progress. Anything above 100 was increasing crashes overall, was the expectation in that scenario. So I think transformative was 118%, which is 18% increase in the overall injury and fatality crashes is expected.
Yeah.
So just a quick question. So on the, by the percentage of residents and jobs within 1/2 mile radius of public transit lines increased 10%. So what are you assuming with that? Are you assuming that we're gonna have more people and jobs within the existing system? Or are you assuming that this system is going to expand?
So it's the existing system plus the BRT lines that are proposed in each of the scenarios. So it's the combination of exactly what we have today, plus if we just build these new lines that are proposed. And I think if I recall on that one, transformative is highest because it has all of the BRT lines in it.
So does
Yeah.
mode shift
Yeah, I may be off on that. I'm
and
Sure.
efficiency.
But the intent is current system, like the GTFS from GRTC today,
Yeah.
plus what's
Got it.
coming.
Okay. Thank you.
And we do have the data team in the back in case there's more detailed questions on how we got to the numbers.
So for the review process, we sent you all 2 pieces of information. The spreadsheet with with an overview of the projects, and then all 4 scenarios with the project list. We also sent you all a story map of the overview of the project, and then each scenario with a geographical representation of where the projects are gonna lie within the region. And what we wanted you to do was review and provide feedback to the point where we wanted to understand, you know, amongst these scenarios, is the modal split correct? Are the projects distributed fairly across the region? And do the projects support safety, sustainability, reliability, and resiliency? So we really want to get an idea from you which scenario scenario resonates with you in terms of addressing both local needs and then regional needs. Some of the feedback that we received from you all, being mode shift and traditional usage overwhelmingly the favorites, with transformative and efficiency scenarios being very limited in the geographical distribution of the projects. We did hear that trade-offs will be needed in the process for modal balance and goal objective adherence. We also received comments saying that the selection process should be driven more by environmental metrics rather than just fiscal distribution. And we also received comments saying that the VDOT Bike Pedestrian Safety Action Plan needs to be folded within the methodology. The third piece of this is the public engagement. We sent to the public in various public engagement events the same material, maps of all the projects, the scenario packages with the maps, list of projects in the goal areas. This engagement period is slated for between February and April. So far, we've received 82 contributions, with 86% saying that mode shift was their favorite scenario, followed by efficiency, transformative, and traditional usage. So what are the next steps in this process? Once we get a preferred scenario, we will set up 4 additional model runs for the investment package, preferred investment package. The model runs will be completed using the different land use scenarios and associated inputs from the pathways to the future planning exercise. The results of each scenario will be compared with the outputs of the baseline future to assess the robustness of the investments against future uncertainty. Additionally, once we get a final project list, we are required to go through an air quality and compliance conformity. This ensures that projects collectively don't contribute any more emissions to the current situation. Under the Clean Air Act, transportation projects cannot cause new air quality violation or worsen existing ones as is. So this is where I stop, and this is where the sausage making begins. I'm going to pass it off to Miles. He has developed a wonderful tool that I think will help us move forward to the conversation when we get to a final project list. So I'm going to pass it off to him. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Dorian. So before we get into the tool, I just wanted to go back and remind everyone on this work group when we set out, the agreement on how we were going to move forward was a consensus-based model. So we are trying very, very hard not to get to a straight up and down vote for majority rules here. So please keep that in mind as we work through this. The intent was always that the final plan is not necessarily going to reflect any one perspective, but it's a compromise from everyone who's on the work group. And so this tool that we're going to present is trying to give us a way to look at that and talk through these items in real time. As Dorian said, we've really heard support for two positions, broadly speaking. So one is kind of the current split, and that's really focusing on the idea that the roadway network underpins everything else. So the transit system runs on the roadway network, the freight movement runs on the roadway network. So fixing that fixes problems for other modes. And it's frankly easier to bundle a sidewalk or a bike project when you're also doing the road project at the same time, because there's a lot less cost to have somebody do something extra as opposed to bring out a whole team just to do that one smaller project. So that's kind of the underlying approach with the current split. The mode shift, I think we've heard very broadly that if we keep investing in the same things that we've invested in, we're going to get the same results. And so the mode shift, a lot of the position and what we've heard on that is that's a great way to start. But a lot of what we've received in feedback is actually also we need to take out extra projects. So not add more projects to mode shift, but take out the highway component as well. And so we're trying to thread a needle here, right? And that's why we're all in the room together to try and figure out what's the way to move forward, because we all recognize the need to shift some of our travel to reduce emissions, to improve the benefits for accessibility, but at the same time maintaining the way that 90+% of people get around the region, which is on the roadways. So that said, here is the tool. So what this is this is each of our scenarios coded up so we can actually look at them in real time and assess how things are moving. So basically, high level, this is each of the four: efficiency, transformative, mode shift, and current split. And we can see all the projects by mode, we can see by time band, and we can see that it's cost constrained. We can also move things and break the cost constraints to see what actually happens. So like, let's say we add a new park and ride lot to time band 2, all of a sudden we're over budget. And so this is going to allow us to make trades and be able to look at these things in real time. What we're proposing is a starting point that represents essentially the consensus between mode shift as a starting point and the current split. When we went back and looked at the numbers, out of the 130 or 133 projects, 123 of them were the same. So if we start there, there's a smaller subset of projects that we need to then reconsider. And so our first kind of question and ask from the group, is that a reasonable starting place to move forward, or is there a strong preference to start with one of the four as proposed and then make the changes from there?
Say that again. How many of the projects were both?
So it's 123 out of the 133 in the current split. So it's like somewhere between 92 and 94%, depending on which of the two scenarios you're looking at. But they're largely overlapping. So the thought was, if we start with those same projects that already overlap, we can see where they differ between the two scenarios, and then it's a lot easier to start making the trade-offs that we have. As Dorian mentioned, we've also heard from some of our project champions that there are some other changes that might be needed in terms of shifting projects that are priorities locally. And so we want to be able to do all of that in real time with this, but we need to pick somewhere to start to be able to do that.
That approach makes sense. If there's two camps and 94% of the projects are in both camps, that makes perfect sense to me.
Devil's advocate here. But if we're looking at the mode shift scenario and the traditional usage scenario, and what seems to be a lot of people's sticking point is the selection of like highway projects and maybe needing to make adjustments to that highway project selection in each scenario. If we look at the shared projects of both of those scenarios, assume that whatever projects are shared between those scenarios is good to go, I think that might lead to a lot of those highway projects that if we were to go through with a fine-tooth comb, we might not feel so strongly about investing in.
So I think what we'd say, we can do that too. So this isn't giving us we have to go with those. They're still, we can move them all around, but it gives us here's the 123 that make both sets as a starting place. Do we want to keep all those 123? And then then we can kind of go to the next step of some of the other pieces.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you guys are good with it, I can pull it up and we can look and see what it looks like. So this is the sort of the shared foundation. So if you look at it, we basically still use up all of the time bands 1 and 2 funding, but we have $700 million surplus left over at the end of time band 3. So basically by removing the projects that didn't overlap between the two scenarios, we can see that there's extra money freed up. And then we have a list down here. So we can see exactly which projects get moved out and which projects from each of the scenarios. I think one other helpful thing that may be a step that I want to show you before we really start diving deep into this set is we also have identified a handful of projects that were either already in our committed project list. So we had, for example, the North Gate Road interchange is in our committed project list. We were also scoring it and assessing it and taking money out of this pot when it was already counted over there in the 1.6 billion that we took out up front. So we don't need to count it in both places, so we can pull it out. I think the same thing with the Meadowville Technology Park at 295 in Chesterfield, and I think there were the transfer centers. GRTC already has them programmed in the tip for downtown, south side, and north side. So when we went back and saw all those, we said, hey, maybe these projects can come out from consideration because they're already showing up as projects we've committed to elsewhere. And so I think, Dorian, you have the spreadsheet pulled up, but they're in the committed list. So that's what I wanted to make sure everyone sees before we move forward. But essentially, if we do that, that frees up all the funding that was otherwise set aside for those projects as well. So if I remove the committed projects, it pulls out this set here that we had. Another two that we found was the Beulah Road Roundabout at 60 in Henrico. That's a funded project through CBTA and RSTP and a bunch of other pots of money. So that one already exists and is real, as is the 150 in Dalebrook Drive interchange modification in Chesterfield. So pulling all of those out frees up an amount of money that we can see at the top. And Dorian, were you able to find those on the committed list just so we can stop sharing? So. And this is just, this is the reality of working with 200 projects and another list of 200 projects and different names, different descriptions of everything, but we got there eventually. So this is the committed project list, and if you scroll down to the bottom, I think the bigger two are most, I think they're all down there. So we can see Meadowville Road at I-295 is 91, North Side and Downtown are both in there. Right there, I think, yeah. And then the I-64 Gate Road Diverging Diamond is 093. So those are, I was just trying to highlight, like, these are projects that have already been committed to. We don't need to do them again, is the thought. And I don't see South Side, but I may be wrong on that one. So we may just pull that one back in, and that's fine. So is everyone okay so far following those steps? Kind of the logic of where we've gotten to for consensus and trying to build to a further set. Any concerns with this? Okay, cool. So let me pull that back up. So the final step then of kind of where we are going with this. So I pulled out the projects that we had, and I did pull back out the south side because I just didn't see it on the list really quickly. We can double check that one. But So we've got all these projects that have come out from both sets of scenarios. We've got this set of projects that we don't need. The last piece is applying all of the local, sort of the feedback that we received from our localities on projects that are either important locally that we need to make sure that we're moving forward because they are priorities for the locality, or projects that are not supported to move forward at this time locally. And so pulling the, shifting some in, some out gets us to, and the other piece of this is we have to move things around to make the time bands kind of work. But when we do that, you can see we wind up $430 million over budget. So we have too many projects that cost too much money. And just for context, we have them down here as well. So there's a handful of projects that are proposed for removal through this process. So there's the Route 60 at Woolridge, Route 76 ITS, Route 150 ITS. The thought on those three, 60 and Woolridge is not locally supported, 76 by the public, not by the county. So needs more work before this is ready to move forward in a plan like this. And then the other two, 76 and 150, are projects that would be bundled with broader highway projects. So they're not going to be standalone initiatives. The other one on this list is phase 2B of the North-South BRT. So this one, it's basically, that's the extension that would run from the planned southern terminus out to Walmart Way. And the thought, and JJ's here, but the thought is essentially there's not infrastructure to get to the bus. There's a lot of extra pieces missing that would need to happen before we would be ready for a phase 2 out Midlothian Turnpike. So that is the four sort of proposed for taking out from what was in the consensus already. And then there are a whole bunch of projects here that are proposed to be added in. And as you can see, they've got pretty large price tags. So that's kind of what leads us to being over budget. So there's a set from Henrico and from Chesterfield. Those are the localities that we heard specific requests to add new projects in that are of interest. Again, the budget doesn't balance, so that's what we need to do is figure out what can we take out to make this actually work. So I'll pause there and see if there's any questions or any other projects. And I think this is the other thing that I would like to probably go back to is any projects that got dropped in one of the earlier phases that another locality really views as a priority initiative. So I think looking up, I saw Walmsley Boulevard, for example, in the city. I saw a handful of projects in Hanover. So just making sure that those aren't also important projects that are moving forward right now that we know need to be in the plan. So that's kind of the broad goal here, is trying to find a way to look at the sets of projects, and then we can start making the trades. But we need to know everybody's kind of starting point of what's missing, what do we need. So I'll pause there. What would be most helpful to look at? I know it's a lot.
I was just gonna add, similar to 150 and 76 ITS, I thought with 288, it would be coupled with road improvements as well. So we would be fine with removing that as well.
If there's no objections, I can just move that one out. We did receive, Powhatan was interested in that project just for again, the idea that it's going to improve traffic flow on 288. But again,
I'm sorry, which project was that?
it's ITS on 288. So
Oh.
very similar to the other two that Chesterfield asked to remove, that they would be bundled with eventual highway improvements on 288 rather than being a standalone project.
Would they be bundled with the two projects that are currently funded?
Those do have ITS improvements already
Okay.
bundled in those. I guess this would be kind of the rest of.
South.
Yeah.
Within Chesterfield.
Okay, so south of 60, basically, 60 and south.
Or 7-Eleven, yes, south.
Oh, 7-Eleven?
Yeah.
South, okay.
And this is why we have this in real time, because I can pull up the ITS investments, move it to our unfunded project pool. And we got back $16 million. So it's not nothing, but I think this is to be able to balance it. This is at the end of the day, what we're gonna have to do. If we don't get to an agreement here, it's gonna kind of fall on us to come up with the final solution, but it's a lot easier if we have all the cards on the table to be able to do this. So I think maybe what I'll start with is there was general consensus that we heard from the localities more so that the priority projects were mostly included in what's called the current split. So I'm looking here at this set of projects, however many this is, like 8 projects. And I wanted to see if any of these were projects that were, is particularly from Hanover and the city, whether those were projects that were priority. I think we've got Walmsley Boulevard Extension, which I know is a smart scale application right now. So I think that one's a actual current project as opposed to something a little longer term. We had US 33 road widening, Winds Church to Ashland Road, Pole Green widening, Royal Point to Walnut Grove, and then the 301 Chamberlain Road in Hanover, which I think is a pipeline study.
We have a funded smart scale project from Rutland Shire to 295. But it is not $41 million.
So I guess what I'm asking is if these are important projects, let's move them in for consideration before we start trying to pull things back out to make sure that we know the full depth of the deficit essentially is my thought process.
Yeah, so if it's not 41 million, what is the cost?
It's about, I'd have to look it up, but it's about 15 million.
So that's a significant reduction.
Yeah, I think this is a different.
This isn't the smart scale project. I would assume this is probably for widening the corridor north from the high school to 54.
Can you look up in the universe what the description on this is?
You said what project is it?
It's P2F 195.
Hanover County US 301.
Yeah.
Improvements focus on reconfiguring lanes, adjusting signal phasing, and enhancing pedestrian infrastructure. Adley Station Road and Adley Road intersections will gain new lane layouts, additional through and turn lanes, and permissive signal phasing. Several intersections, including Cudlip, Lockwood, Leon Lane, Times Dispatch Boulevard.
That's the smart scale funded project. We can definitely reduce the cost of that.
Okay.
And if you just give me some time, I'll be able to tell you the exact amount.
I guess to that point, Miles, are the cost estimates that you have here fairly reasonable?
So the cost estimates were based on whatever study or locality estimate that was provided. And then what happens in each time period, there's an inflation factor. So if it's it's 3% per year out to the midpoint in each of these periods. So you wind up with, I think it's like 75% inflation if you're in the latest time period here.
So I guess that's the question. Are we confident that the costs that were provided are realistic, or do they just have a lot of contingencies already built in before the inflation?
I think from our perspective, that was what was approved in the universe projects as the estimate that was given. So I think that's what our starting point is going to be. I also think if that project is funded, it can just come out of this completely and it's a committed project. So I think that's a separate.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have the project agreement up right in front of me.
Okay.
And that's like $41 million right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
but-
that's.
It's a committed, it's a funded project for
Okay.
14 million, 14.460.
Okay. And that one is not included in the scenario, so that doesn't have any impact. But I guess the other two was US 33 Winds Church to Ashland, which is, I guess, phase 2 of the
The
first
line,
one from
yep.
Henrico County.
Mhm.
And then the other one was Pole Green from Burrow Point to Walnut Grove.
Yeah, both of those should stay in because those are logically the next phase of the widening projects we have going on.
Okay. And see, but the Walmsley, is that,
Yeah, I'm running the small scale stuff now.
so I think what we're trying to understand is which of these are likely to move forward in the next, 5 years, because this is a 20-year plan, but at the same time, there's also, this is going to get updated again in 5 years. So if there's projects that you're not likely to move forward, those are the easier ones to take out in this short period when we have to do these trade-offs.
We can take out 33 then because we're not gonna be through the PE phase of the phase 1 and we're not gonna chase phase 2 until phase 1 is in the next 5 years.
Okay.
I do have my keepers that I don't see on that list, so I can give up P2F 079.
Miles, for clarification, they stay in the vision project list, I assume?
That's correct. So
Okay.
everything that's not in the funded set stays in the pool of unfunded projects. So we're still able to chase money for them for non-MPO related funds, and then they're still there if we need to move them in at some point. We already have the details. It's just a question of finding the trade-offs. The goal is really, we started with the data, we got to a data informed process, but at the end of the day, there's also, we know some projects need to move forward because they're the ones that are moving forwards.
What if a project has come online since our project list was submitted? So we have the roundabout at Route 30 and Farmers Drive. And that was a VDOT project that it's part of the Route 30 safety improvements which really falls within the Hampton Roads District, but this one intersection fell in the Richmond. So the Farmers Drive and Route 30 is a project that's advancing in smart scale. But it's not in our long range plan. So can we add that back in, or how will we do that?
So I think there's two parts to it. One, I don't know the functional classes off the top of my head for those roads, but if it's not an intersection on a principal arterial, it doesn't need to be in the plan in general, because that's how we defined regional. So when we did the project inclusion guidelines, we started with it had to be at a certain level, and then there's a cost as well of $10 million minimum.
Okay.
So I don't know off the top of my head for that one.
It's Route 30.
So it may be a minor arterial. I just don't know off the top of my head, but I think that's probably likely, because I think 60 is the only principal. So,
But it's $8 million, so it wouldn't qualify.
yeah, but the point is we have that local programmatic
Right.
buckets that we also set aside. So there's
Okay.
basically $4 billion set aside for local bus stop improvements, bus replacements, roundabouts, sidewalks, those smaller scale projects that don't rise to regional. So we do have money, and they are consistent with the plan, and the MPO would still endorse it for the smart scale
That's what I
applications.
needed.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, let me go back to this cities project. Like I said, I think this one is a smart scale application this round, so my guess is that we need to move it in for consideration, the Walmsley Boulevard extension. So I'm just gonna move it for discussion purposes. We'll put it in the keep list, and then we can start looking a little bit more in depth at each of these time periods and what projects are in them.
You're saying if a project is likely to be funded, that it should be moved out as well this year?
No, not if
Yeah.
it's likely. If it's already funded, it should be committed, it should already be included in our 6-year program review. So projects that were already in there, or projects that are programmed in like the TIP.
Yeah.
We already know about those, and those, we just have them as, these projects are already moving forward. It's the new projects that don't have funding yet that we're really.
Gotcha. I know, because Richmond City applied for 3 phases of north-south BRT, and I'm seeing some of that in the farther out years, so those might be moved up as opposed to staying in time band 3.
So north, south. So with the shifts, and I again think to mention this, but with the shifts to make things balance as best as possible, more expensive things moved up, less expensive thing, like there was some shifting to move things around. So we have north-south phase 1 in time band 2. And then 2A, the Virginia Center Commons Azalea piece in time band 3. So kind of the next logical, once we build one, then we can build the next one. So I guess to start moving forward then, if there's no other kind of current, we started with just the ones on the current split side of things. If there's any interest on the other half, we also had projects that were in the mode shift scenario that didn't then make it into the cut. So in Hanover, we had park and ride at 301. In Henrico, there was I-95 and 60 park and ride, I-64 and 60. So
We can keep that park and ride lot is not gonna go in. That could have been part of the smart scale funded project, and our board of supervisors decided not to move forward with that.
and then I guess the BRT, we had the West End South, which is really, really far out in terms of planning. So I don't know if anyone that's really Henrico mostly. So that's basically Cary Street and heading out to kind of Tuckahoe and then up to Short Pump. So it's a second route up that way.
I'm fine with that being out for this.
And then looks like 2 shared use paths, New Market Heights Trail, which I'm not familiar with what that one is.
That's a 3-notch potential alignment,
So that one sounds important.
so that's important to us.
Okay.
I'm sorry, not New Market Heights.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, I'm thinking of West Ham.
that's the one.
New Market Heights is still important to us, though.
Is that the one that was in TAP this round? New application?
Yes.
Okay, Phil's here. Okay. So, 113. And then, Amy, I know we've talked about 155.
Yeah, I see there Charles City put theirs in.
Yeah, so we had it in here as a project for kids. So we have the 106 extension all the way down to the Capitol Trail and 155.
We don't want the 106. Well, remember, we talked about that. The 106 for us, getting down to, probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but the 155 does. At some point.
13.
I didn't know they were putting theirs in. So that's good.
Right, so I'm gonna move both of those in as kind of other ones to consider. And so now we are at $728 million over the funding that we have expected over the next 25 years.
Okay.
So that's kind of now we got to figure out what's coming out. And I think, Tripp unfortunately had to leave, but he put a message in the chat that said that, he said, impossible to adequately see on my phone. Sounds like there's helpful clarifications. Overall, too many road projects, even in mode shift, and sounds like more being added. So I think that the idea is looking again at what we talked about at the beginning, that mode shift, is there a way to also remove some of the highway projects to make space for these other projects that we're looking at, transit extensions and the trails? Yes.
For the past couple of weeks, I did go through every single highway projects on the universe of projects and just read their descriptions, read their titles, and gave it my best shot. This is just one person's effort, but I did code them based on what modes they support. Because there are a lot of highway projects that, despite the category highway, road widening for a shared use path. And it's a lot of these projects that are just like minor alterations to like the roadbed for vehicle use, but more investment into those multimodal investments. And I could share that.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, and that would be very helpful if you have it on hand. But we've done the same thing, and I think one of the key things, and this is something that we always try and make sure we're sharing when we're out in public as well, is that these highway projects aren't just highway projects. It's a highway project with a sidewalk, or it's a safety project with turn lanes and pedestrian crossings, but it's primarily on a roadway, so it's a highway project. And so not everything labeled highway is highway in that sense. Oh, you've got a pie chart already printed?
It's just like, kind of the results of it. It's not like the whole exhaustive list. But just like, I found that, let's see. 16% of the highway projects did have like a positive mode shift towards multimodal transportation. I found 35% of them were kind of a wash, where it was increasing capacity or throughput of an intersection, but also with the inclusion of some multimodal investments. And then 47% of those highway projects were strictly just vehicular capacity or no multimodal aspect of it included in the project. So I think there's a lot of room with both kind of that neutral territory and that 16% of projects that actually are a positive mode shift that we could mill through and really work on accomplishing that goal of reducing, highway investments for vehicular capacity and more multimodalism.
So, I guess we're at the point now where this is where we need direction from you guys. So Guy's proposal is to start working through each of the highway projects and kind of leave what's in there right now for transit and active transportation and look at those later. Is there another approach, or is that the approach you guys want to take?
I mean, are there any other localities here who have more projects that could be removed first?
Yeah.
Because I have a few.
You have a few?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, well, let's do that then. If there's something we can take out, let's go for that first.
And I'm here trying to make sure I'm covering my face. So just hold on, let me get back to my list. Okay. So there's a Gaten Road project included in both the mode shift and traditional. Like a bunch of pump to John Rock, apparently. That we can remove. And then Creighton Road is in both mode shift and traditional.
Is it the widening?
Cedar Fork County line. It's the widening, yeah. Yep.
And we have another one that's Sandy Lane to Richmond city limits. Is that one?
Let me look into that in a second.
Okay.
Let me just make sure. And then the Innsbruck area. So it's like from West Broad to the end of Cog. Mode shift and traditional is included in both of those.
Do you know the number of the?
I don't know, but I can find it. We'll move to the next one then before we do that. So Knuckles Trail is in both mode shift and traditional. And can be removed.
Is this the widening with pedestrian facilities?
Yes. Some of these are either funded or just are not ready for this.
And I think it would be helpful if you can let us know which ones are funded. I mean, I don't need it right now in this meeting, but like if you can let us know which ones are that, because that makes a difference in how we are showing them down the road.
Okay.
These are projects that were already committed, and that's why they've been removed versus projects that we have decided as a group that they don't need to continue into the plan.
Okay, let me find this Innsbruck area number for you.
And I guess while Ashley does that, did anyone else want to volunteer any projects before we start working our way through the list?
And to clarify, so we had requested some projects be added. Right now, those are included and that's part of what's putting us over.
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so that includes,
We're just trying to be good partners and do our part and take a few projects off in the county. To try to balance out.
yeah, so like Gaskins and West Broad and all those ones that we have listed.
Yes.
Can you go back to the added projects? That's
The
one to
added.
see which ones are.
Yeah, so these are all projects that were not in the consensus. They may have been in one of the two scenarios, but they weren't in the common 123.
And it's just the ones on the left, right? Not the. one
Yeah,
on the
just
right.
these ones on the left. These ones on the right are ones where the time had moved between, balanced it out.
I guess I'm having a process here. So when I look at our objectives, right, and then our performance, how these different scenarios are performing. Like some of them are pretty low, right? Like by 2050, average, let's see, what was it? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Sorry, not really. Oh, yeah. By 2050, transportation-related emissions per capita are reduced by 75%. Right, well. I mean,
Yeah, so I think there's multiple components of that. So what we're measuring in this is strictly from the projects that we're building. So that's not including the overall shift. So compared to the baseline, that's not looking at from today shifting to more electric and alternative fuel vehicles. So that's a second level of the calculation that to pull this all together for today, we weren't able to do, but what we were trying to capture was based on the projects themselves. Here's what the difference would be.
that we have today, that the projects that are in.
Right.
So, I mean, but could there be a situation where we look at the projects that actually achieve our objectives here? You know, more fully than what we're really achieving just by the projects that are being put into the list, you know, arbitrarily.
Right. So I mean,
Does
I
that make
think
sense?
what we can do is once we have another
Yeah.
set, we can do that.
Okay,
To run the numbers and see how it does relative to kind of where we started, but until we have those number or the projects, it's hard to do that on the fly.
I mean, targeting the projects that actually achieve these objectives, right?
And I think that part of putting those numbers in was to show that like the different strategies give us somewhat different,
Right,
but in some cases, like completely opposite, like the transformative that was increasing crashes as opposed to decreasing just because of the mix of projects that we were seeing.
because I think what I'm having, and maybe what other people are thinking too, when we think about the mode shift scenario is I think we're thinking, okay, let's get people out of their cars, you know, biking, walking to transit. But fundamentally, what we're seeing here is it's the existing system, right? Just in increasing it to account for the BRT. Right, well, there's current like transit on those corridors, right? And they're performing pretty well. So sure, the BRT is gonna come in and it's gonna have, you know, a more efficient service and it's gonna have higher capacity. So it's gonna move more people. We've demonstrated that with the Pulse, right? But Broad Street was already the highest performing corridor in the system before we went, that's why we went with the Pulse, right? That's why we went with the Broad Street as the starter line. So what I'm thinking here is that if we really want to have mode shift, then we have to sort of correlate that to increased service, which means increased operating costs, not just infrastructure, right? Because I mean, right now we could go out and maximize the capacity of the existing roadway and not put any money into roads. That's what we did on the Pulse, right? Not 1 foot of right of way did we have to take. And we're maximizing the capacity, moving 1 million people a year. Okay, so we could do that in theory, right? We could take and we could dedicate lanes and put transit and start increasing the capacity of the existing rights of way just by making that fundamental shift. Okay, which then allows people to have the frequency, the reliability that they need to get out of their car, right? So I guess what I'm saying is if we really want to be serious about modal shift, then let's be serious about it and look at how do we maximize what's out there today. Right, so on Midlothian Turnpike, let's take a lane, right? If we have to put in the infrastructure, put in the infrastructure. And then you're gonna reduce the travel lanes for cars, but you're gonna increase the capacity of that right of way. So it's a different thought process, and maybe that's what people are thinking, especially when I see the kind of the desire from the public wanting the mode shift. I think that's what's in people's mind, right? Get me on the bus. Help me to get to these other modes of transportation safely. We can't take it if it's not there. And so fundamentally, we're not really changing that. We're assuming what's there. And so I think that is a little, there's some, maybe we need to look a little deeper into what we're saying here in these scenarios.
So that's, I think that's a good point. And I think that's definitely what we've heard of, like, let's revisit, like, and admittedly, we have not gotten a lot of comments on the full scenarios. I think we were at 80 something that we checked, and it is tending to skew more urban, more educated than kind of the general populace. But that is kind of the approach that we've heard presented as sort of the alternative to doing this. So I think we can also look at it this way of what are we funding versus not funding in the pool of projects that we had. So of all the transit lines that were even considered and all the transit projects, we had a lot of BRTs, and as of right now, we have 2 of them that are out, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in. And so, we can run the numbers, what is it if we build all of it? What is it if we build these 6 and come back with that information? But I think that's the other thing that we only have so many projects that were an option to start from. So from the universe of projects that we all started on,
Right.
even if we put all of them in, it still doesn't, there's only so many to choose from.
Right, and I think maybe that's the point, right? We're not looking at a field of dreams here. We're looking at what we have in front of us. And, with the projects that we have, what does that mix look like in these different scenarios? Right, so maybe that's sort of the thought process that also needs to go out to the public. It's to help them to understand, we're not starting from scratch here. We're basing the results based on the projects that we currently have, the system that we currently have. We're not trying to build a whole new program of projects. We're using the projects that we have. Right, so that's different. That makes sense.
I think the same, like highway is the same. We're only looking at the highway projects that were brought to the table in the beginning when we had the universe. And then, the trails in what we have today, it looks like all the trails are in here. And park and ride, I think it's a little less. We got a couple that are out, but we only have so many projects in each of these modes. The highway mode is the one that has the most projects and has more than we have the budget for if you just add it all up. So I think that's the most room that we have for the trade-offs. But I think to Dorian's point earlier, transit projects are also very expensive, but they're the way we have them, it's one big line. It's not split up. And so it's harder for us to go back unless we found a way to split them retroactively. Well, we phased a few of them, but like some of these other ones are so conceptual right now. it's a line on a map. It's not, they haven't done any additional studies or anything to figure out that.
So that shouldn't be in the constraint list anyway.
How far is time band 3 out?
It goes out to 2050. So that's so this is a 20-year plan. So we're out to 2050. So that's, will it be studied and potentially implemented in 20 years from now? That's, I think, the other piece of this is there is a, if we are going to start making changes to how we use the roadways, we have to at least have it in as a vision so we can start getting the studies underway and move them forward. So I think to Amy's earlier point, like, even though some of these are lines on a map right now, those lines have to have a study to be able to get there. So yeah, this is the complicated part, I think, from our perspective, because we're looking at 20 years out. We're also looking at projects that are going to applications like last month. So it's a range of how developed these concepts are and where they are in the kind of pipeline of project development too.
So the flip side of Amy's point of, wanting to make those investments in transit and multimodal investments and all that. It's also worth looking at, what are the road widening projects in time band 2 and 3 that would induce mode shift, the way we don't want it to go towards more vehicles. And with just the number of projects that we do have in the highway category, and as he said, if we were to fund every single highway project exclusively, we still wouldn't have enough funding for it. I feel like there's a lot of there's more room to work with in cutting down projects that induce vehicular capacity versus going gun-ho with the few transit projects or the few trail projects, pedestrian projects that we have on this list. And I think to Amy's goal, your goal to take a more critical look at what projects in those later time bands are increasing capacity that we can reconsider.
All right. So I think what we've heard is there's a desire to start looking at the projects that are in the set and starting with the highway side and see if there's any of these that can come out before we move on to the transit and the trails. Is there any concern with starting there? And again, I mean, this is probably going to take a few passes, and we're trying to knock this out, but this is really a complicated piece. The data is only getting us so far, and at the end of the day, we have to make choices here. So I guess we'll just start with time band 1 and work our way through. So Lauderdale and Henrico, Ponzi tract at Short Pump, and we've got Virginia 54 from Francis to East Corporate Limits, which is Ashland and Hanover, I guess. I mean,
the list we're looking at, these are excluded, or these are
the ones that are included right now.
Okay.
It's all time band 1.
Yeah, so there's only 3. There's not a lot of money. It's only $200 million in that whole time band once you take out the 1.6 that's already committed to other projects. So then, I guess moving on to time band 2, we've got Route 33, Phase 1, which is Chickahominy to Winds Church. 3 chopped from Skipwith to Horsepen. Go Woodman Road, Hermitage to Hilliard, and then Ashland Road north of I-64, which is kind of a companion to the Ashland Road interchange project and the economic development site out there. And so then time band 3 is where we've got the bulk of these projects, which is Creighton Road, 295 to Cold Harbor, Bull Green, Rural Point to Walnut Grove, Ashland Road and Henrico County to US 33 in Hanover. Ashland Road from 33 to Blanton, which is, I think, phase 2 of, or phase 1, depending on which direction we go from. So those two go together. Rural Point from 301 to Studley, Rural Point from Studley to Ball Green, again, kind of phased, 2 different projects. Meadow Bridge in, from Henrico to Atlee. Henrico County to Ashland on Ponce Tract. 301.
For the Ashland Road projects,
Back to that one. Plan,
these-
Ashland Road widening with.
yeah, there's 2 Ashland Road projects. We have a revenue sharing application at Ashland and Pouncey Tract. I don't, in the next 5 years, I don't see us moving forward widening that project. Can probably, definitely keep it on the vision list, but I don't see us widening that.
Both of the, either of them? There's 33 to Blanton and Henrico County to 33.
Yeah,
You do the one to Blanton. We ride on that,
Mhm.
and that would be helpful if you had better multimodal. Access, because we use that quite frequently.
okay.
We need to get over to Blanton on Ashland Road. It's a very dangerous road for us to ride on.
But one thing that wasn't included on the list, we did submit a smart scale application through Plan RVA for interchange improvements at 295 on Meadow Bridge that I don't see listed. That probably needs to go in.
Yeah, so and I think that one came out of a study that was completed after we had the
Yeah,
universe.
it's an
So-
ongoing pipeline study.
Yeah, so for those, I mean, those are the kinds of projects that we have to add after the fact.
Okay.
Just because we didn't have it in the universe to start with. But that's, I mean, we have a handful of those that we've already flagged. I think we've got one in Goochland that we kind of like, these might need to get added down the road too.
So what's the deficit now? 399?
Yeah, 399.
Y'all are doing great.
You just need to.
Ken, you've done this before, you know how this is.
I've seen some meetings where this was like,
That interest is just really mounting up, right?
Wow, that was, what's it called? I think you added Route 360 widening from Lauderdale to Magnolia, but I just didn't see it on any of these time bands.
All right.
So I just wasn't sure if we're seeing all of the projects.
Otterdale to Magnolia Green, 360
there it
widening
is.
right
Okay.
here.
So
What about US 301? This is another big set of projects. It was Hanover High School to Peaks and then Peaks out to 54.
Yeah, within the next 5 years, there might be some intersection improvements, but not a full scale widening.
I mean, we could move those to the vision as well potentially and kind of take them out of the mix. It's another.
I do know that, that intersection of Peaks, Georgetown Road, that's a problem spot for us that we're definitely looking to address, but probably not in a widening capacity.
Right now, down to 200. So, I mean, I think Hanover's had several here. Is there anybody else that wants to
I think that Creighton Road one,
Standy Lane to Richmond City?
no, Cedar Fork to Hanover line. Thoughts?
All right, let me. $295. That's already over here on the,
Oh, I was looking at the wrong column, sorry. Okay, never mind.
Miles, just verifying again, these are included right now? The Creighton Road at 295, is that?
Yeah, Creighton at 295 is included.
Okay, because we are moving forward with the study for that section.
And then we also have Creighton Road widening from 295 to Cold Harbor.
We would like those to stay in.
So, yeah, I know this is this is painful, but I think we're getting there. What we're gonna try and do is if we can kind of get this down the last 200 before the end of today, then we'll be able to run the same analysis that we ran and kind of look at how that does to meeting each of those objectives. And then the next step is also looking at 5 different modeled futures. So looking at all the different scenarios from scenario planning. So it's how does it do with the future we're expecting, and how robust is it if the future is different on any of those different land use development patterns. So we're almost there. I'm like, I think we got it.
Is one approach to take it? Like, I mean, we talked about the different stages of development, like for stuff that Hanover has in study, obviously we're looking forward to making improvement on those. The ones I mentioned, like we haven't started studying yet, so there are ways out. Can the other jurisdictions do something similar? Because
Yeah,
that way we know what we're prioritizing.
Yeah.
and I think study money is still, like, through the MPO, we still give out study money, even if the project's not in here, because one of the categories we look at is it needed to advance a project in the LRTP, or is it needed to get a project ready for inclusion in the LRTP? Just in terms of like, if we need to do additional work. And I can actually, let me just quickly move a couple things over, like moving them forward might free up a little bit more money too with inflation, so then we can. Oh, moving some things forward, we're down to 186, so we're almost there. What would be is there anything helpful to pull up at this point, or are you guys just reviewing your own lists?
Can you read project description for PTF 076? Interchange improvements?
Said P2F 076,
Yes,
Chippenham.
yes.
Reconfigure existing interchange to a partial cloverleaf and improve non-vehicular access and travel flow.
It would also have, that's 150, 360, right?
Yeah, that's 150, 360.
It would also have bike ped accommodations, which would allow people from Chesterfield to get to the GRTC route on the Richmond side.
And I think this one and the Midlothian one, we pulled from both Richmond Connects and from Chesterfield's plan. So we had duplicates and had to just pick one to use, but it's the same project or intent as we understand it. It's fix the interchange and move pedestrians and cyclists through there as well.
half cloverleaf is on the Bridgman's.
You get more infrastructure.
And
Well, it sounds like, I mean, we're kind of at a lull right now on these projects. I don't know if it'd be helpful to just read some more out to see if it sparks any ideas or look for. I mean, yeah, I don't know what's most helpful for you guys.
I guess another issue could be, again, back to the project development side of things, like if some of these projects are further along and we have a better idea of cost estimates, we may be able to get better figures as well by reducing the cost of some of these projects. If something has moved and the cost associated with the project has changed, there may be some savings there as well.
I mean, I think still don't really want to touch those just
Okay.
because that's what, from the process wise, we fixed it. They're locked in at some
Got
point. I think down the road though, like if you did have that interchange project come through and we need to amend this, then that's a chance to revisit cost estimates if there's a better, more accurate cost estimate at that time.
I guess where I would go is like where Hanover, we had widening where we're doing intersection improvements instead of a widening where that's a vast
Huge difference, yeah.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful, I mean, JJ or Ashley, you guys have the bulk of these projects, that's why I'm
Yeah.
asking you to specifically, but.
Yeah. Is the 95 ITS just within Chesterfield?
That's a good question. I think, yes, we had it listed, so it was a county request.
Okay. So I would say since we also have 95 widening on there, we could it could be coupled into that. It's at that cost. So we could take the 95 out.
And it's the widening this exit 62 to exit 64.
Yeah, I think we have multiple widenings. We have 288 to Willis and then Willis to Route, which that might be.
We do have two different ones, Willis to Route 10, and then we've got one that's 62 to 64.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't know what the exits are off the top of my head, but
Yeah,
sounds
those
in the
are
right
288
ballpark.
and Willis Route. Okay. Oh. I feel like that's the overlap. So Willis to Route 10 includes Willis to 288 already. So it looks like there's an overlapping project for 95 wide.
So you're saying this exit 62 to 64 is an overlap?
I believe so, because 10 is south of 288. And Willis is north, so yeah, I think the one from the 62 to 64 can come out since it's covered by the other one. Yeah.
down to 136.
Our Darbytown Road widening project, so that one we would consider dropping. It's a pretty big price tag. We just know that bridge needs to be replaced. What is the description of that?
Read that one, it's 030.
Widening with added capacity and pedestrian accommodations is all we have.
I feel like we could take that one off, but I'm hesitant to do so. I'll talk to my so.
On Hanover, I'm just asking on this, we've got 2 phases of Rural Point, 301 to Studley and then Studley to Paul Green.
One of those is associated with the potential, at some point, the school board's gonna move forward with the new Mechanicsville High School. One of those is associated with that. I don't have a time frame on that.
So are we likely to move forward with both of them then? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's dependent on the school. What the school timeline is, and I don't have that.
I have a question about just project inclusion. So I have a few projects here that really the needed sidewalk. And I think they're currently listed as like a growth project. The sidewalk reasonably significant, is that?
If it's just sidewalk,
Yeah.
no. So the guidelines that we had was basically if there was active transportation facilities along with a highway improvement.
Mhm.
So if it's just building the sidewalk and the pedestrian crossings, that sort of thing, then that's not necessarily regional.
That's what I thought, but then I got confused when I think I was reading through the different scenarios and sidewalk was explicitly listed, so I just wasn't sure. That being said, I feel like Pemberton Road. We need sidewalk, but I mean, I don't think there's much else we're gonna be able to do there or that we have proposed. So we may be able to remove that. Again, I mean, I have a few things. So like, do we need to make a decision, a final decision today on what projects that can be removed, or can I get back to you within like a week?
So, I mean, schedule wise, we need to get to the policy board by the end of this month.
Got it, okay,
Because otherwise we do not have time to go through air quality conformity
got
and
it,
get the plan adopted in time.
okay.
So we're hoping we can get to something today. And if we can't get to it today, I think the other thing is that the LRTP, just like a comp plan, can always be amended.
Yeah.
There's a process, it goes through the board, we redo conformity if we need to, if it's actually a capacity project that it comes out to be, but otherwise, it's pretty straightforward to do amendments.
Okay, I think I can take out Chamberlain Road then, Azalea to I-95.
All right, let's see where we're at.
Not much better is that. I help a little.
It's 95 Willis on this one, Miles.
The interchange
Interchange.
and, yeah, I-95 Willis interchange improvements.
That would cover what's missing or what you need to get down, right? Cause that
What
one's
is
just so expensive.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not even
That
physically constrained.
Yeah, so is that
I
not,
mean, the long range transportation plan, the constrained plan, it needs to have reasonably expected funding, right? $263 million, is that a reasonably expected?
that,
That's
Again,
what I'm getting.
Yeah,
that's
no, thank
inflation,
you.
that's
Thank you.
inflation adding 70% to
Yeah.
70% was from the last estimate that we looked at. It was 100 and something less around smart scale.
150 right now with smart scale, but it's such a large ask that. Especially as you said, we could always amend if we ended up.
Yeah,
finding
that's,
funding.
that needs to
That
come
one
out.
come out.
Thank you.
So we actually have a little bit of wiggle room now. So congratulations, everyone.
Not the first time. That was really good.
So I guess the question then becomes, how do you want us to handle the balance? So we've got $140 million left over. We can either try and move a couple projects back over. We can look at an unfunded.
Yeah, that's fine. Can I move my Creighton back?
I mean, are there
I'm
other
sorry, my
projects?
Chamberlain. Sorry, not Creighton.
I mean, I think that was the question originally is, are there other projects like that, that just the costs are
So
way, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, the two biggest costs of projects that are in the plan right now are the Poet extension in Chesterfield, which is phase 2 out to 360. And then the north-south BRT, which I forget what the starting point was, but it was 300 or 400 million was kind of the baseline assumption for the whole thing.
The
And
whole
then,
thing, and that's not even reasonable. I mean, they're not gonna build it like that, right? So,
I mean, that was the estimate. We worked with GRTC and confirmed it. So that's, again, it's the starting point that we all used. And
right.
And I think we used a similar, we looked at the western extension and we looked at north-south and used that as a lot of the baseline for updating the other BRTs as well. So they're all also premium BRTs if built. There's a lot of budget set aside for it, right? But that was kind of the thought process. So and I can look south side transfer and the regional bus transit hub. That project didn't score very well. That's the idea that we should have intercity buses also meeting up with the local bus network somewhere.
Cool, but that one was funded through CBTA, the regional.
Oh, that's the
10%.
downtown. Yeah, we have the downtown too. So that one's.
Well,
here.
what was the regional one?
The regional one would be like kind of the concept that's been floated before, like Main Street or somewhere else becoming the hub where like Greyhound and everybody else, and there's an actual facility for it. So South Side Transfer is the other one as far as transfer centers that isn't included, which I think with North South is potentially more important now as a potential trade-off.
Said it was not included?
It's not included. So it was one that was dropped, but we could put that, I mean,
That one back in,
Yes, please.
You could put west and south back.
that one needs it.
yeah, it's 300.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We don't have any trails that aren't in there. We have a handful of park and ride lots, but as I understand it, these were all, there's 2 in Henrico. I'm trying to get the little things first and then we could look at whatever there's bigger room for.
So we have added the south side transfer center.
Earlier you said it was in the tip.
So I remember I said, we'll put that one back in because north and downtown were, but we didn't see south side when we looked at the list. So
Okay.
that's why I put it back in here to be safe.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. So that was me. I was confusing you.
All good.
I'm still fine with these park and rides being.
Okay. So then that leaves us with highway projects. I don't think there was anything else on the transit front that we could reasonably move in. So, I mean, it's only $120 million. So this isn't going to go very far these are uninflated costs on the right, so when you move it in, add another 75% to get to where you're at. So we're looking at maybe two $45 or $50 million projects, which is not very much, but it sounds like everybody has largely pulled out projects that aren't likely to move forward, need additional study, probably need more time for development. Are there any smaller ones that maybe just didn't make the cut initially that are also important? Like one I'm seeing here, Bryan Park interchange improvements, that's $80 million. That one did not make the cut. And I know we've had various applications in various sorts. RMT access improvements, that's the full-blown new interchange, not the roundabout that's currently underway, but the full balance with the extra ramps and access to the port and all that stuff. Bellmead, can't do that one.
I don't know if it made it, but it was complementing with the interchange at 150, 360 Turner to Tacony corridor enhancements.
I don't think I saw that one in our project list.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure if it made it, but if we're looking for something small to fill that gap,
Could you read the?
that's a part of the STAR study right now.
Yeah, could you read the Bryan Park?
Yeah.
Project description?
What's the idea on that?
64. And then we had another one that was 133, which was a higher cost estimate. So I think the city and Henrico had submitted different components of what's probably a lot of different interchange improvements. So start with 64.
So Bryan Park interchange improvements, improvement of interchange configuration with I-95 to improve the southbound I-95 to westbound 164 ramp exit 79. Merge 3 lanes to 2 after on-ramp from Laburnum. 2-lane on-ramp from southbound I-95. Convert westbound I-64 on-ramp from southbound I-95 to 2 lanes. Remove 1 lane from westbound I-64 prior to on-ramp.
I know that's a big one that needs to be approved, but I don't know if that cost the 70% added on,
I mean,
how much that would add.
I do that one, it's 140, which gives us 60 million over. We can pull back out your smaller projects. That's the trade-off. We can pull back out some of the smaller ones we just added. We will be sharing this full list with everyone, don't worry. I know this has been a lot. I don't remember what the. Ashley, what was the one that we took out and then moved back in?
I think it was Chamberlain.
This one, 301 Chamberlain, Azalea.
Yes.
Okay. That doesn't offset that one. So we've got, with that one back in, we've got 109. I mean, if it's easiest, we can take a look at this and just kind of figure out which of those projects scored the best and add it back in, you know, within the constraint, and just kind of look at the rankings and move one or two in and let you know where that lands. Because I think at this point, we're just kind of spinning our wheels. So does that approach seem okay with everyone?
Putting in Bryan Park and then looking to see. Take out.
Well, I mean, if we add Bryan Park, we need to cut 30 million.
Okay, gotcha.
Inflation.
They took Bryant Park out of the CBTA.
Bryan Park is so regionally.
It is. I mean, it's definitely,
It is.
it's the core of all the highways meetings, so.
We need that.
So I mean, I think, yeah, if that's the case, I kind of need some candidates for this last 30.
Yeah.
And we can call it a day. Take back out the one that's gone back and forth several times. That'll take Azalea Avenue, Chamberlain, Azalea to 95. That'll take 14 of it.
Yeah.
That's half of it. So we're looking for 16 million from what's in here. See if there's anything that's 161 in Broad Rock. 22. It's another one in the city. I don't know what that one is.
Yeah, what's E2F 082?
Oh, wait, 2. And in Walmsley.
It's a construction of new roundabout.
I think 083, 161 and Broad Rock is probably the same thing, right?
Same
Yeah.
roundabout, yeah.
Actually, this is another one. We have 034 and 035. One is the interchange modification at 295 and exit 43, and the other is exit 43 to the collector distributor lane. And I think they're slightly different, but I'm just trying to make sure we don't accidentally have an overlap because they got the same price tag. Right?
Same, that's.
Yeah. Can you find those descriptions, Marian?
Said 034, 035.
Yes.
Yeah.
034, I-95 interchange modification, widening of the cross section between I-95 southbound deceleration and exit 43 Brook Road to a 2-lane section. This is 0.5 miles. 035, I-295 interchange modification, exit 43 to end of collector distributor lane. Widening of a 2-lane section of 195 southbound on ramp onto 195 exit, I-295 exit 43 northbound to the end of CD lane, and that's 0.5 miles.
Yeah, why is that the same exact price?
It's probably $10 million to start and then.
Sound similar? If you think it's a duplicate, I'm okay getting rid of one of them.
Does everyone feel like that sounded like a duplicate?
That's a duplicate.
So,
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Get rid of it.
All right. So, problem solved. We did it, everybody. 100% capacity across the whole plan. So I am exporting this to save the list, so we all have it. And we will also send out these tables at the bottom, which show kind of what projects were included and then excluded based on the two scenarios. And then a list of what projects shifted in time, which projects were explicitly removed because they were committed or a local request, and then which ones were added back in that weren't in either scenario. So this will give us a kind of high level overview of all the changes that were made. And then we'll also have the actual, like, this time band, this project lists. So, yes, thank you, everybody.
Good job.
This is very helpful.
great work. So we will be contacting you soon after with the project list, timeline on the next steps, and then we'll be emailing you as well with the date for the next meeting, the next advisory work group meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
So this